NBA Fantasy, Trade Deadline's Impact on Fantasy. Breaking down how the NBA trade deadline affects the fantasy outlook for multiple players. Welcome back, fantasy basketball enthusiasts. It's that time of year again. The NBA trade deadline has come and gone, and we've seen some huge moves that are going to shake up the fantasy landscape for the rest of the season. Today we're breaking down all the key trades and how they're going to impact your fantasy rosters. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more updates and analysis. Let's dive into the madness that is the NBA trade deadline. Avis is headed to the Mavericks. No one saw this one coming. Doncic, just 25 years old, is already one of the best players in the league. Meanwhile, Davis, who has been dealing with an abdominal injury, will likely shift to the power forward position in Dallas, next to Daniel Gafford. Fantasy impact. Doncic and Davis remain elite fantasy options, no matter where they play. Once Luka returns from his calf injury, he's going to be a dominant force for the Lakers. But this also means Austin Reeves could see his fantasy value take a hit, as both Luka and LeBron James will dominate the ball in LA. On the flip side, Gafford could see a slight dip in his production, now that he's playing alongside a big name like Davis. Now let's talk about the Lakers filling their hole at center. They've acquired Mark Williams from the Hornets. Williams has been a beast when healthy, averaging 15.6 points, 9.6 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks in just 25 minutes a game. But there's a big question: will he stay healthy for the Lakers? Fantasy impact. Big winner alert. Dalton Knecht, who was part of the trade, could be a sneaky pickup for fantasy managers. He's likely to start in Charlotte, so keep an eye on him, especially since he's still available in 81% of Yahoo leagues. Also, don't sleep on Jusuf Nurkic, who was traded to the Hornets from the Suns. He's now in line to be their starting center. If you've been holding on to Nurkic, this is the best landing spot you could ask for. Next up, we've got a three-team trade that sent De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs and Zach LaVine to the Kings. This one's a bit of a shocker, as Fox was expected to leave Sacramento after next season. But the Kings made a move to bring in LaVine instead. So, how will this shake up their fantasy value? Fantasy impact. Fox, now with the Spurs, should continue to get plenty of usage alongside Victor Wembanyama, so his fantasy value should stay solid. But for those of you relying on Stephon Castle, his role may diminish after Fox joined the Spurs. On the Kings side, LaVine could see a big jump in fantasy value playing alongside DeMar DeRozan, Domantas Sabonis, and Malik Monk. But with no true point guard in Sacramento, the ball distribution might be a bit tricky. As for Chicago, with LaVine out, expect players like Josh Giddey and Kobe White to see more minutes and more fantasy opportunities. Warriors made a splash by acquiring Jimmy Butler from the Heat in a multi-team deal. Butler should fit in perfectly in Golden State, where they've been desperately in need of someone to take the scoring pressure off of Stephen Curry. Fantasy impact. Butler's fantasy stock is looking up in this move, especially since he's signed to a 2-year extension. Expect him to be a key contributor on both ends of the floor. On the flip side, Andrew Wiggins is going from being a second scoring option on the Warriors to likely the third option with the Heat. His fantasy value could take a slight hit, while players like Jamie Jaquez Jr. and Nikola Jovic may lose minutes with Wiggins in the mix. The Bucks have made a bold move, sending Chris Middleton to the Wizards and bringing in Kyle Kuzma. Middleton has struggled with injuries this season, while Kuzma provides the Bucks with a younger, healthier alternative under contract for a few more seasons. Fantasy impact. Kuzma should see an uptick in fantasy value, especially after averaging just 28 minutes a game with the Wizards. Middleton, on the other hand, could have his fantasy production limited, given his injury history and the fact that the Bucks are deep in their playoff push. Brandon Ingram has been traded to the Raptors for Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, and picks. Ingram's been sidelined with an ankle injury, but when he returns, his role with the Raptors could mess with the usage of Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, and others. Fantasy impact. Zion Williamson, CJ McCollum, and Trey Murphy III could all see more opportunities now that Ingram is no longer a part of the Pelicans' offense. Keep an eye on Kelly Olynyk, though. If Zion were to miss time, Olynyk could become a solid waiver wire target. The Hawks made a couple of big moves, sending DeAndre Hunter to the Cavaliers and Bogdan Bogdanović to the Clippers. Hunter will have a reduced role with all the talent in Cleveland, while Bogdanović adds a scoring punch off the Clippers' bench. Fantasy impact. Zachary Rizicher could be a sleeper fantasy option in Atlanta after both Hunter and Bogdanović left. He's been getting more minutes and producing solid numbers. If you need scoring or three-pointers, keep an eye on Rizicher. So there you have it. A ton of trades shaking up the fantasy landscape. Make sure to keep an eye on the players we mentioned and adjust your rosters accordingly. If you're looking for the latest updates on player values and trade impacts, make sure to hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for tuning in and good luck with your fantasy teams. Screen fades out with channel logo.